Y'all are now 10-2 in your last 12 games. What do you attribute the ascent of this program to?
Yeah, I did not know that stat. That sounds good though. 10-2. There's my agent over there. You can take over for him.
As frustrating as today was, does it all make you question the decision to coach out the rest of the season?
Never. Not even a thought.
Trying to get players to do the right thing, and we use playing time and opportunities in football to try to get them to do the right thing personally and academically. So that's basically all I got to say about that.
Coach, that's all we got.
But you guys are really good about taking roll. I will say that. I mean,
our team fighting plays the way they do because they believe in what we're doing and who we are. They believe that we had an opportunity to come here and win a football game. That's the way that they played for 3 quarters. Didn't have enough in the fourth quarter to go get it done.
Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Hey, man, how about the Vols? I know they lost yet again, but hell, I mean, it's kind of what I thought. I thought they'd get their ass handed to them. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Shane. I thought Tennessee was going down there, going into another Alabama massacre. I know the final score was a little lopsided, but you got to be proud of the fight this team has because it seems like they're playing with one arm tied behind their back, and they gave Alabama all they could handle for about 3 quarters.
Well, when you're fighting them and the refs and, McElroy up there in the press box, I mean, what'd you think was going to happen? I mean, this thing couldn't get more pro-Alabama. I don't want to take away anything from Alabama. In fact, if I'm taking anything away from this game, it's this right here, Mike. I want to apologize. I want to apologize to all that SEC podcast cousins out there that are listening to this on Monday morning because I know I'm a homer. In fact, we started this podcast talking about the damn Tennessee game, even though it wasn't the 3:30 CBS game. So I want to apologize for my homerism because as I'm listening to Greg, every time there was a good pass from Young, it was, golly, look at that. That was a perfect dime. And then every time Hooker threw a good pass, it's like, well, that was terrible coverage. What happened? It was just I've never felt so much homerism in my entire life. And then I thought about you guys, and I said, you know what? This isn't fair. I'm going to start doing better. This is the SEC podcast, not the Tennessee podcast. But if you did watch that damn game, Mike, I'm going to tell you right now, that is the worst officiating I have ever seen in my life. When you can freeze frame a block to the face between 2 defenders getting held, it's like, what are we doing here? I mean, come on. Could we not get one call? That was a fumble at the goal line. The ball was moving. I'm trying to reverse that. And it's hard for me to say if Tennessee was doing that, that would not be a touchback. I just know it would be. So I'm going to tell you, it was a hell of a game. I think we surprised a lot of people out there. But let's not forget that this is Alabama. And, they had to make some crucial mistakes for us to stay in this thing. That's how good this program is. But I will tell you, you look at this game, you look at the Florida game, you look at the Texas A&M game. This is not the same Alabama team that we've seen in years past, Mike.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I didn't even mention the score of the game here, Shane. Alabama 52, Tennessee 24. We'll break down that game in just a moment, but you did get me thinking there. Alabama may not be the elite Alabama that we're used to seeing, but I got to be honest. Speaking of homerism, of course, we're SEC homers. There wasn't a lot of SEC action this week, so, while I was waiting, I had the Arkansas game on. I had the Oklahoma-Kansas game on. I had Cincinnati versus, I think they were playing Navy. And those are the 2 teams we got 2 and 3 in the country. I mean,
Penn State fighting for their
oh
lives
my
up there.
God. I mean, I don't think Cincinnati would beat half the SEC, yet they're ranked number 2 in the country. Oklahoma, I mean, my God, Kansas is the worst program in college football. They had to break the rules just to get the conversion to win the game. So we could sit here and pick apart these SEC teams, but my goodness, they would just Alabama would beat the hell out of Cincinnati. I think the over/under would probably be around 30 points. Don't you think?
It was so funny. I was flipping through the channels and I stumbled across the Cincinnati and I saw that 2 beside him. And instantly I looked to the bottom right to see if I was on ESPN Classic. You know, I was like, am I catching a 90s film here? I did not realize that they somehow snuck into the top 10. Not the top 2. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, who votes this shit? Who sits there and says, you know who's the number 2 team in this country? It's got to be the Cincinnati Bearcats. I mean, look how great they've been doing, you know? How could you even think that? I don't care if they even pulled off a couple upsets. I don't know their schedule, don't care. I'm just saying that roster, there's no way in hell you can put them in a top 10. When you got teams like Alabama, when you got teams like Georgia, when you got teams like, damn, Texas A&M now.
Yep.
It seems like Ole Miss now.
Ole Miss.
I mean, if you put Cincinnati in the SEC, I'm telling you, buddy, they may not make a bowl game. That's just, it's just laughable to me that somebody sent that vote in. That not just one, many people did that because that was an absolute joke. And then, like you said, I know this is an SEC podcast, but you're right. Arkansas peanut butter there, that game was over, and I couldn't watch any more of it without falling asleep. So I drifted over myself, and I'm watching that damn Kansas game, and them refs, buddy, I don't know what's going to happen next year when Oklahoma and Alabama go against each other. These refs ain't going to know which way to call. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be so many damn flags on the field. This game may never end. It may be the longest college game in history.
Well, yeah, so let's get back to the Tennessee-Alabama game. Shay, speaking of penalties, you know, Tennessee did a lot of this. They did it to themselves. 12 penalties, 98 total yards. Feels like 98 there. Alabama only 4 penalties for 30 yards. You know, to me, that wasn't really the story of the game, Shane. It was more just the fact that, yeah.
The targeting? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not that, but
the fake false starts? No,
this game,
not that one either. Okay.
It seemed like Alabama was always on the brink of breaking the thing open, yet Tennessee's defense, Shane, they just, you know, time and time and time again, and we've given Josh Heupel and this offense so much attention, yet this is 2 weeks in a row, Shane, where the defense really held Ole Miss in the second half, and then here Alabama in the first half. I mean, we're talking consecutive 3-and-outs on the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're talking special teams blocking a kick, and here we got Bryce Young, almost like last week, Matt Corral, just making the critical plays on third down. It seemed like Tennessee had Alabama on 3rd and long all night long. Alabama converted 33 first downs. Tennessee only 10 first downs for the Vols. Jeez. Because most of their production was on big plays there. So, you know, credit the offense for coming up with those big plays, but they faced over 90 plays in this game. They faced over 100 a week ago. Tennessee just, I mean, it's like a broken record over here, but they just don't have the roster right now. They don't have the depth to be going 190 plus plays back-to-back weeks, and the dam broke, so to speak, and Bama busted. You cannot give the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa any advantage here, any like a crack in the door. They're going to bust that dam right open, and that is exactly what happened in the fourth quarter. So that's a credit to Alabama, but I'm just so surprised that Tennessee is willing to fight and compete, and it's just because I haven't seen them do it in years and years. You know what?
Mike, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people talking about Heupel and what he's done with this program, but you got to look. I'm telling you, that defensive coordinator, Tim Banks, may be the best damn hire that we ever had, because you're looking at this offense of Alabama is elite, man. I mean, there's a lot of first-round talent over there, and Tennessee was able to hold them in check most of the game. Like you said, in the fourth quarter it opened up, but you're talking about a thin defense that played the entire time. You know what I'm saying? This is a thin defense. And if we could learn how to stop a quarterback run in the middle, about 30 yards in for a pass, I tell you, man, this defense is damn near perfect. So these guys are playing hard as hell. But you know, like we're saying, I mean, we're pumping up Tennessee just because they kept Alabama in check for a little bit. I thought to myself, if we can keep this a two-score game going into the fourth quarter, we may have a shot, and we did. And if it weren't for that boneheaded intercept, actually, there was a couple mistakes they made there late in the game, but mainly that interception, that was just that broke their back. And if they could have capitalized and got some points and made this a one-score game, who knows what could have happened. So, but just like I said, that's a well-coached team. When you look at Alabama, you look at Nick Saban's rosters in years past, you know, they don't make a lot of mistakes, but when they do, they don't kill themselves. They typically learn and they build from it, and that's what I felt like happened there in the fourth quarter. So as much as I like to make fun of Saban, I mean, he's still the GOAT for a reason.
Shane, did you know that Henry To'oTo'o was a former volunteer?
Oh, God. Jeez, Mike.
How many times do they have to tell us that?
What was best is when he let that guy go and we blocked that punt. Yeah. They nipped that storyline in the bud right there. So
yeah, so I'm glad you said that, Shane, because that was a crucial moment in the game. Tennessee blocks a punt deep in Alabama territory. I believe it set Tennessee up in the red zone immediately. But what did Alabama's defense do? They responded. They held Tennessee to a field goal. And to me, that segment kind of, I don't want to say define the game, but you know, that swing of a momentum, you've got to punch it in the end zone. And I thought the other one that was huge, Shane, again, we give Josh Heupel credit, and I think he's doing a hell of a job, but this is 2 games in a row now, Shane, where I don't think he's calling his best stuff, because there was a lot of plays in the Ole Miss I was left scratching my head, and then here against Alabama, particularly third and short, a lot of runs up the middle. When you got Lyman out, you're never going to beat Alabama one-on-one, even if all your starters are in there. So that was curious. Right. And then the decision to punt the ball late, I believe it would have been a 4th and around 2, but they it seemed like indecisive. They didn't know what they were going to do. Then they called the punt team. They got to delay a game. And when you punt it to Alabama and then they go right down the field and make it a 2-possession game, I mean, that was about all she wrote.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those games that if Tennessee was going to have any shot, they couldn't let it become a blowout. And I'm telling you, me personally, it hurt my feelings, not just because the game was out of play then, but I'm a gambler, Mike, and that point spread this whole time, I'm like, oh, golly, because that's the only one I needed for a 14 parlay, and I was like, come on, baby, just keep it close, you know, but then all of a sudden the dam broke, and then that last drive, I think the most disappointing for me, well, I don't want to say that, because I think the most disappointing part of that game for me was that fumble there at the goal line. You saw Heupel on the sideline really upset with that situation. And I know as a Bama fan, you're going to be, you're okay with it. But if again, this is one of those things, I like to flip the script. Mm-hmm. If that was the other team doing that, what would you think that call should have been? You know what I'm saying? And if you could honestly say you thought it was a touchdown, then fine, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, 9 times out of 10, if that thing would have got called a fumble, it would have stayed a fumble. It would have been a touchback. So again, Tennessee 2 weeks in a row, a line judge is going to dictate how finish game. So, it's kind of frustrating. I get it. Tennessee fans, boy, I tell you right now, we do not trust the stripes. I'm telling you, there is no trust at all. So, but it was a hell of a game, Mike. I ain't gonna lie. Third Saturday in October. The main thing for me, Mike, is it's finally competitive. Right. You think about the Pruitt years. You think about the Dooley years. It's just Butch years. I mean, we've been getting our ass kicked from. And you look at the point spread. If you didn't watch the game, you probably think it's a blowout. But it was a competitive ball game until the fourth quarter there. So that's, as a Tennessee fan, I am still tickled pink, even though we lost. And I know that's nobody likes moral victories, but I see the writing on the wall. You know, you have to see it. As soon as Heupel gets some talent, as soon as he gets some competitive depth in there, then maybe we can compete in the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? To get a complete game out of them. So, but anyway, man, I think we're talking about an Alabama team that's destined for the college football playoffs. I don't see anything stopping them right now. Do you got their schedule? What's after this?
They got LSU. They got a bye week, then they got LSU. After LSU, Shane, they got New Mexico State. Ooh, that's a tough one. Arkansas at home, and then at Auburn.
Arkansas at home, and then at Auburn. You never know about that one. So I'm not saying it's a clear path, but I right now, the way that Alabama has progressed here the last couple of weeks, I do not see them slowing down. This is national championship contender. So the roster is loaded. The line, I'm telling you, that trench play, buddy, you're looking at a Tennessee offense that one of our bread and butter was running. If you think about it, we were averaging over 200 yards, like 270 yards a game. And that front three, I don't care. They could have put one lineman up there. I'm telling you, they whooped our ass up front. The offensive, they lived in the backfield. They did not have to apply external pressure because those boys got back there and they wreaked havoc. So I'm telling you, man, that's probably one of the best trench warfares I've seen since the Georgia game.
Yeah, Tennessee finished with only 64 rushing yards. Alabama, 203. How about Brian Robinson, Shane? He's looking like a mini Derrick Henry back here. I know he scored, 4 touchdowns against Ole Miss. He added 3 here against Tennessee. Bryce Young, I believe he became the first ever Alabama player, Shane, to throw for 300 and rush for 2 more touchdowns. And then John Mechie, my prize pick selection, 11 catches, 121, 2 touchdowns. And Jamison Williams, he didn't have his best performance, but hell, 6 catches, 123, and if that ain't your best, that gives you an idea of how great of a player he's been for the Crimson Tide this year.
God. And again, Greg should never get to commentate an Alabama game. Just FYI, I'm just saying. I bet he's watched his replay 3 times now. He's just so tickled pink for Alabama. But anyway.
It seemed like they were dropping a lot of guys on defense. How did that open things up for Bryce to use his legs a few times?
Well, they mixed it up. They mugged it up, and then they dropped guys out and dropped 8. And then at times they pressured us out of that. A couple times we messed up the protection. We didn't get it blocked right. Bryce made some critical third down scrambles that kept drives alive. I think a big difference in the game is they were like 2 of 13 on third down, and we were really good on third down. And didn't like the way we got started in the second half, 2 3-and-outs right off the bat. But, I think the difference in the game was our ability to control the ball. I mean, our time of possession was way up there, and a lot of that is due to the fact that we converted third downs. They didn't sustain drives, and even though they were going fast, they didn't sustain drives. They scored 3 times on big plays. And on the 3rd and 8 on the 8-yard line, we busted the coverage. Half guys playing one thing, half guys playing the other, or we could have got off the field right there. But look, I have a lot of respect for their team, their quarterback, their coach, and the way they're playing. This is a great win for our team.
Can you remember a game in tight situations where you had 3 busted coverages like that?
Well, one of them, the 3rd and 8 was a bust. The 2 early ones was a bust. I mean, we weren't lined up and ready to play on the 70-yard touchdown, that the last one that they scored. Josh was standing there looking at the sidelines trying to get the signal, and they went fast and snapped the ball, and the guy ran right by him before he ever even was lined up and ready to play. So that really wasn't a bust. D. Wright getting beat on the chop route was not really a bust. But then we got him 3rd and 8 at the 8, and we busted. And the 2 longer passes early in the game were we didn't execute. So, but the offense answered, and we kept scoring points. I think it was big to get an interception at the end of the game. which, sort of put the game out of reach and, changed the game in the fourth quarter. So, we need to fix those things, but we had some matchup issues out there today that we're going to have to work on and try to get fixed.
Yeah, Josh, this is a game where you could have set Hendon, set out Tyon. Instead, you put those guys out there to win. What do you think that message said to your team about the importance of this game?
Our team fighting plays the way they do because they believe in what we're doing and who we are. They believe that we had an opportunity to come here and win a football game. That's the way that they played for 3 quarters. Didn't have enough in the fourth quarter to go get it done. Hendon was able to get enough work during the week to be ready to play. Tyon, same thing. If guys are ready to go, they want to get on the field and go compete.
Yeah, Josh, on that 4th and 1 around midfield, did you consider going for that at any point? And then on the Byron Young touchdown run that looked like he fumbled and recovered, what was the explanation that you got from the officials on that?
The 4th down, did consider going for it, then communicated to move to punt, and we didn't get our punt team on there. On the scramble that turned into a touchdown for them, initially was just talking to the side judge, and he said that the box didn't have a view for it to be overturned. Basically, that he had crossed the goal line based on the footage that they had. Continued to communicate with him. Told him I was close to burning timeout, and then they ended up reviewing it from up top. And not only did they decide it was a fumble, they decided it was a touchdown too, where our guy ended up with the football on the coming out of the pile.
Josh, your defense kept you in the game when your offense was struggling. What did that tell you about your defense's sense of responsibility to keep it close?
It's who they are as competitors. They line up, and they're going to fight with everything that they got. They're going to be relentless in their effort. The way that they ran to the football, the pressure that we got up front. Quarterback obviously is a really good player, got out, made plays with his feet. They continue to line up and go compete, man. I love that group.
Let's move on before we lose Cousin Shane here. But the biggest game, I guess if you can call it that, Ole Miss defeats LSU 31-17, and it's pretty bad when that's kind of the slate of games we had in the SEC. This being the big game, but LSU came out fired up. Shane, they dominated the first quarter, 7-0. Mm-hmm. They got into the red zone, nearly made it 14. I believe it would have been 14-0, but Max Johnson, and it was 4th down, so I don't really hold it against him there, but he throws an interception. I mean, if that's the same as incompletion on 4th down, so you're trying to make a play. I'd rather a guy try to make a play than run out of bounds with the game on the line like we have seen. But after that, it was all Ole Miss in this one, Shane. And the biggest thing from this game, like last week, that running attack really opened everything up against the Florida Gators. Right. This week, only 77 rushes on 35 attempts for LSU, whereas Ole Miss, they just went wild on the ground, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. Matt Corral, efficient as always, 185 and a touchdown. And, man, LSU they didn't really even show up here in the second half, and it was no. You thought they would come out and play inspired football for Coach O, and it looked like they came out that way. But once they got punched in the mouth and got that adversity, it was all Rebels after that.
Yeah, and by the way, lock of the week. I mean, everybody knew Matt was going to play. This was another deceiving score. I understand LSU jumped on them early, but you just, similar to that Alabama game, you just knew that this thing was going to open up at some point. You kept expecting it from Matt, and I don't know if you saw it, Matt, but I'm telling you, I felt like he was injured, man. It didn't feel like the same guy last week. I know they tried to get him, to run a little bit, but, the one thing that the reason that a lot of people have Matt as a Heisman candidate is because what he's able to do running and passing, and it felt like he got a little one-dimensional in this game, but I don't know if that was scripted or if that was just, the flow of the game, like they didn't need him to do it. But Snoop, another great game. Well, I mean, hell, when you got a running back performing like that, I guess the best thing to do is just keep giving him the rock.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it, Shane, but it was a little tongue-in-cheek, but I said, as soon as I saw Matt Corral take the field for the first snap, I said, Matt Corral starting the game. Ole Miss faking injuries a little bit early this week, but yeah, I mean.
Oh, they were all hydrated this week, Mike,
I mean, the fact.
Hey, I hate to go back, man. I hate to go back, and I can't remember where I saw the tweet, but one of the things that I did like about an Alabama fan was they were talking about the fake injuries. They said every program does it except Alabama. And if you think about it, every team that you see going against one of these fast-paced offenses, there's been some fake injuries, if you will, or cramps. But one of the things, kudos to Nick Saban. He's that's one trend he does not want to get involved with. So, okay, sorry. Back to Kiffin and them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know how hurt Matt Corral really is if they're rushing him 12 times. I feel like, you got to win the game. I'm sure he's gutting it out. But I see what you're saying. He certainly didn't look as mobile as we saw certainly against Tennessee. I mean, he went damn wild, but. Again, they didn't really need him in this LSU game to necessarily do that because, they just basically had their way, like I said, with LSU after the first quarter. And I think the biggest surprise to me, Shane, was just the fact that I don't know if it was LSU's offense not executing, but Ole Miss defense really standing tall in this matchup. I mean, there was a stretch there in the second quarter going into the third. We had 4 consecutive drives that ended in 3 and outs for LSU, and you just cannot survive that when you're on the other side. You got Matt Corral going so fast. You have got to give your defense a little bit of a break, and LSU was just unable to do that here on Saturday. And I know your brother had money on this one. He bet on LSU to win out. I think he picked them to win outright, and man, after the second quarter, he about ripped up that ticket. You know what?
Well, again, too, it's like once LSU gets one dimension, one thing, stop running the ball, it feels like this offense is doomed to lose. It feels like that every single week. You got it. That's just one thing. They just can't. It's almost like we can't find their identity, man. We're this late in the season. We're 8 games in, and we still don't know what LSU's all about. Sometimes they flex. Sometimes they just look god-awful, and especially in the efficiency. I mean, you look at the efficiency. They were 4 for 12 on third downs. How many times did they finally have a decent drive going only to get shut down on third down again? So it just felt like they just couldn't get back in rhythm after that first quarter. So, but Ole Miss – I mean, you look over there, you got 200-yard runners, man. I mean, those boys had their way with that defensive line.
Hey, one thing, speaking of that, Shane, and being efficient, Ole Miss was not great on third down, 5 of 13, but they were 3 of 3 on fourth down, and we know how Lane Kiffin loves to go for it on fourth down. It really bit them in the Alabama game, but do you think this starts a trend at all, Shane? Because, as I'm watching Ole Miss play football, it's got to be demoralizing as hell to the opposing defense when you do stop Ole Miss and they just turn right around, no hesitation, pick it up on fourth down. Do you think maybe that's a trend that we see moving forward where coaches get a little bit more aggressive?
Mike, I'm glad you said that because I thought about that last week. Because how many times did we get amped up in that stadium when we stopped them on third down? It was almost like we got deflated that they were even attempting to go for it on fourth down,
Right.
It was almost like we knew we were going to screw this up because to get 10 yards, it's a lot easier if you got 4 shots and 3. So, yeah, I think, and you're seeing it. You're seeing the offenses mold. You're seeing the defenses mold. I think you're starting to see a lot more of the play calling. We talk about, I mean, there's been jokes on charts and statistics and all this stuff. There's a lot of time and money that goes into this stuff. And Ole Miss is a prime example that this can work, man. I'm telling you, it may transform. I can't remember the coach that just refused the punt. You remember that storyline?
Oh, yeah.
Like it just, I mean, it changes everything because I'm watching the Alabama game, and I hate to keep going back to it, but when Saban went to third down, there was no doubt in my mind he was going to punt the ball.
Right.
Heupel, I was a little like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Look where we're at, But still, a little bit more conservative. But that's one thing about Lane, and it is a dagger to the defense morale. It's a dagger to the fans if they're at an opposing game. I think you're seeing something here, and he's opened up the door, and we're going to start seeing it more often, I think.
Lane, we were in here a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about giving up 51 points to a team that was shut out the week before. Now you're giving up 17 to a team that scored 49 the week before. Just over these last 2 weeks, how have you seen this defense respond, and where is the growth coming from in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we got to remind ourselves of things like that. Just a few, weeks ago sitting here and, really not stopping Arkansas hardly at all until the 2-point play. I think Jake Springer has a lot to do with it, not just as a great player, but feeding off of him like the play he made at Tennessee. I think, he's kind of like mad on offense. The players feed off of him, so that certainly helps. And, we're playing better. And when you play a slow down offense like that, your guys can do a better job with pass rush like you saw today than having to play, 80, 90 snaps versus tempo. So I'm sure they were happy. They went from two of the fastest off. They see one of the fastest offenses in the country every day. Then the last 2 weeks playing, two of the three fastest offenses in the country. So they're probably pretty happy to see someone normal. And we actually punted on a 4th down too. So I think I heard some boos actually. Now they don't like that. I didn't know what to do. Like, it was like, hey, wait, the book actually said don't punt. And I'm like, but they only have 7 points. We're stopping them. So I went against it and punted them deep, and our defense got us the ball back 3 and out. So went against analytics, and it worked.
You mentioned that Matt was beat up, but he's still running the ball. He caught a pass. How would you kind of rate his performance?
He missed a few throws early, as you probably noticed. When you can't push off, that's kind of hard to play quarterback. And you could see he couldn't move the same, and your rhythm's off because he didn't take all the reps like you normally would all week. And again, if his starting group that I said at the beginning of the year, we're going to be the best 3-receiver group in the country, if they stayed healthy, and they haven't, so he's down to 1 out there. So, the guy's a warrior. Guy's awesome, selfishly for him. Well, I mean, it's not really selfishly. I wish we had all the pieces around him, because now you're going to get, Heisman, that he doesn't have the numbers and all that stuff. And, you got to watch the game. I don't get to sit back there and just wait forever and throw to wide open people. So, I mean, he's awesome, and I don't know where he'd be without him.
Y'all are now 10-2 in your last 12 games. What do you attribute the ascent of this program to?
Yeah, I did not know that stat. That sounds good though. 10-2. That's my agent over there. You can take over for him.
As frustrating as today was, does it at all make you question the decision to coach out the rest of the season?
Never. Not even a thought.
I mean, after that, that second drive, what do you think just kind of, I guess, went wrong with the offense over those next 5 or 6 series? I think you guys were only able to get around 30 or 35 yards total on that little stretch there.
Yeah, first of all, they had too much pressure on the quarterback. And then we had some miscues. We had a couple of misassignments that gave the quarterback fumbled the ball. It was a big deal. We couldn't run the ball like we wanted to, and we couldn't get the ball downfield. I mean, the protection wasn't good enough for us to get the ball downfield.
All right, Shane. Well, speaking of dagger to momentum here, let's kick it down to College Station, where Texas A&M wins 44-14 over the South Carolina Gamecocks, Shane. And we simply have two teams just trending in the opposite directions right now. I mean, yeah. Texas A&M looks like one of the hottest teams in the country, obviously the SEC, whereas South Carolina, arguably, I mean, I'm sitting here saying they're worse than Vanderbilt. I think they're basically dead even with Vanderbilt. Man, you hate to see it for South Carolina because they had so much momentum coming into the season, but this is where basically your program's at. I think the frustration with South Carolina fans, Shane, is just it seems like the team's getting worse. And, You're not seeing maybe adjustments. You're not seeing – I think the players are trying hard, but they're just – when you go up against a Georgia and A&M, you're just so overmatched, and the coaches are not scheming anything up to potentially give you an advantage like we are seeing with the Tennessee and Alabama. I mean, it's the same damn thing there, Tennessee, Alabama, yet Tennessee coaches are finding a way to at least make it competitive where, like I said, we're going in the wrong direction here with South Carolina, whereas Texas A&M, I mean, hell, before the offense even touches the ball, it's 7-0 because Anaya Smith has a punt return touchdown. That got the crowd into it, and that just felt so deflating. And it goes back to kind of like what we were saying to LSU. As soon as South Carolina got hit with a little adversity, it was just like, oh, God, we're not going to win this one. We got no shot. You know what I mean?
Folds up. Yeah. Almost like you grabbed your ball and went home,
Right. And, man, it's tough to see. I don't know if you saw the stats, Shane, but South Carolina had 11 yards at halftime, and that was apparently the fewest since 2008 that an SEC team had in a half of football. By the end of the third, they had 5 yards of total offense. I mean, it's just, I don't want to say Chad Morris-esque, but I mean, we're close to that. But again, I think, I'm seeing a lot of people, Shane, they want the offensive coordinator fired. They want the offensive line coach fired, and they want them fired not at the end of the season, Shane. They want them fired today.
Now.
But here's where I disagree with that, Shane, and let me know what you think. I think it's a completely different story if it's someone maybe like at Florida, Todd Grantham. Everybody is fed up with the defensive coordinator. He's had several years there. He knows all the players. The system should be implemented. And if you do got to fire a veteran assistant, there's got to be someone there that can step up and knows the defense and knows the players. Where at South Carolina, we're still in year one. And if you're firing position coaches and coordinators 8 games into the season, do you really have a qualified individual ready to step up? I mean, I think you got to let the season play out because, maybe you can make the argument it can't get much worse, but I think you're not giving it a fair chance if you're pulling the plug on critical positions like that 8 games into the season. Now, I'm not saying that we got to guarantee that they're here for year 2, but I think you've got to give them the regular season. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean,
because again, South Carolina.
I get
remember,
it. Yeah.
we've had to play 3 quarterbacks. Our star running back had back surgery like 2 weeks before the season started. We've got no receivers that are emerging. They've got, I think, the best 1 or 2 receiver coaches in the entire SEC and Justin Stepp. Yet we're not throwing him out because the receivers aren't good. It's a talent issue is what it really is,
Yeah, no, it is. But you got to remember, too, some of these guys that are coaching right now for South Carolina were not Beamer's first pick, Right. So I don't think there's a long line of folks ready to come in there and help them out. So I think right now you play this thing out. You're sitting there. I mean, you got 4 wins. I know that's not what you want. You'd love to get 2 more. It's going to be tough to do in these next 4 games, but it is possible. You still could make a bowl. There is silver lining, and that's one thing. I want to walk some of these Gamecock fans off the edge because it's not all bad, It's not. It's just for 2 years. I mean, you could argue last year. It's just the injuries. It's just worked against you, man, and the timing couldn't be worse. Going into the season without a quarterback right there at the tail end. It's not like, Luke ate up all that practice time only to get banged up right there at the beginning of the season. That put him behind the 8 ball. You got 2 running backs that we thought were going to be I thought they were going to be stars, man, but clearly they have problems up front blocking. This is an offensive line that's just probably the worst in the country, or worst, at least in the SEC, ranked close to it,
Right.
So if you can't give your quarterback time, you can't give your running back lanes. What do you think's going to happen? And I'm not saying the coordinator hasn't tried. I mean, I've seen some pretty creative plays come out of South Carolina, but the timing is off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we look at the Tennessee game. We look at hell this week, man. It felt like there was no adjustments, and so I don't want to. I hate to say it, Mike. I feel bad for him because there's a lot of guys that were sitting back and they're pointing at all these hires that were going on in the SEC and thinking that Beamer was the guy, you know, that they got the home run. And then you go through season one and it's like, shit, did we pick the wrong one? I've been there, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a head coach and I've been like, golly, because a head coach can set you back 4 years. But I don't think that's the case here, Mike. I just think the way the thing lined up coming into this season, the way the injuries have plagued them during this season, there's still light at the end of the tunnel, Mike. Let me ask you real quick. You got Florida right now that is spiraling, okay? You've got Missouri that is beatable. You've got Auburn that they're hit or miss. I mean, they're like bipolar. You don't know what you're going to get with Auburn sometimes.
Right.
And then you got Clemson, which got beat by Pitt, so they're not a juggernaut anymore. So can they get 2 more victories here? Can they make a bowl? And if they make a bowl, do you consider that a victory for Beamer and staff?
Absolutely. And that's kind of my thing about why you don't just sit around and fire everybody after 8 games. I mean, we're going to have 2 weeks now to prepare. You hit that reset button. 2 weeks to prepare for the Florida Gators team that just lost to LSU. They're going to face Georgia this week. I mean, you gotta. We'll get to the lines here in a minute, but obviously Georgia a big favorite, and then if somehow you find a way to beat the Florida Gators, I don't think that would be a massive upset. Then you travel to Missouri. Right there's your opportunity to get to a bowl game. And again, I'm not saying you got the best offensive coordinator and offensive line coach in the country by any means, but how different does that look if? Again, we've played 3 different quarterbacks and we've had all these injuries all across the board. Your middle linebacker's out for the year, and you don't have a deep team. And remember, one of their starting quarters transferred in, and then he transferred right out. I mean, there's been so much adversity, yet there's still an opportunity to reach to a bowl game. And hell, what if one of your 6 is beating Clemson? I mean, are you gonna sit here and say, I know things have been rough towards the middle of the year, but if going into this year, if I told you you're going to win 6 games and potentially beat Clemson, I think 100 out of 100 South Carolina fans would have signed the deal for that, don't you think?
Oh, without a doubt, man. This is a Clemson team that barely beat Georgia Tech. This is a Clemson team that got their ass beat by North Carolina State. They barely beat Boston College. They barely beat Syracuse. They got beat last week by Pittsburgh. I'm telling you, this is the year that you clear everything. Maybe you don't make a bowl. Who gives a shit? I'm telling you, at this point, if you're a South Carolina fan, if I told you lose every game except that very last one, it's worth it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It is freaking worth it. I would rather sit my studs for 3 weeks and prepare for that one game, because this is the year that you dethrone Dabo and become the I mean, yeah, later I could see them ripping the Clemson stickers off their trucks right now, Mike, because the bandwagon is on fire over there. And who better to put the nail in the coffin than South Carolina Gamecocks? So again, you got some light at the end of the tunnel. You've got some things you're working through right now. I'm walking off the ledge, but there's, like I said, just don't give up. Now, Texas A&M, I want to go back because I don't want to get too far into South Carolina, because we got to talk about Texas A&M right now, man. These boys are hot. Okay, what's their path? Is there a path for them getting to an SEC championship, Mike?
Well, they're going to need Alabama to lose again. That's step number 1. They got to have Alabama lose another game, but. Yeah, and it's not going to be easy, Shane, because they've got Auburn at home. Again, who knows what you're getting with Auburn week to week. At Ole Miss, that's looking like an incredibly tough game. And they got Prairie View, and then they wrap up the season at LSU. So certainly you got to like A&M to be, I don't know if they're going to be favorites in all those games, but if you were to tell me right now they're going to beat all of them, I would believe you. You know what I mean? The way they're playing, particularly on defense, they look, outside of Georgia, they look like the best defense in the SEC. They made South Carolina look like FCS football team, and I think the biggest thing is just what you're getting with Zach Calzada. And week in and week out, he shows you flashes. Alabama's pretty much the only game that he's put it all together, but he's got massive potential, and he just seems to get more and more comfortable. They've got the running game going. That's been the critical thing to the whole thing, is just getting that offensive line, getting them gelled, because that was the issue against Arkansas, against Colorado, against Mississippi State, so many penalties. So now that they got that offensive line to go in the right direction, they look like one of the best teams in the country.
You know what my favorite part is, Mike? Weidermeyer. It's like all of a sudden Calzada realized, oh, he's on our team? Okay, let me go ahead and get this guy the ball. I think that's one of the things that's popped up here lately. It's just, we knew going in that Weidermeyer is going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. And it felt like we just never got to see it. But, man, they're starting to – out of Calzada, out of all the connections, it feels like that one's really starting to blossom, man.
Yeah, and look at A&M's drive chart to start the game, Shane. They did throw the interception, which obviously you don't want that to start the game. But following that, touchdown, 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 field goal, field goal, field goal, touchdown, field goal. I mean, they were a machine. As good as they were on defense, they were right there on offense. And, yeah, I mean, there's just not much more to say than, like you said, Jalen Weidermeyer, 4 catches, 75, 2 touchdowns. He's the all-time Texas A&M touchdown leader for tight ends, and he's only played not even 3 seasons of college football. So A&M, give me just about any outside of Georgia. I'm picking Texas A&M to beat. I don't know. It's tough because you just don't know if. Let me rephrase that. If you're getting Zach Calzada that we saw against Alabama, I think they can beat anybody outside of Georgia.
Oh yeah. I can see that. I think what hurt him is kind of similar to the South Carolina deal. I just think if Calzada could have got all those snaps in the offseason, then they wouldn't have started out so sluggish. This is the Texas A&M team that we were promised. It's just unfortunately they got 2 losses right now, and they're waiting for a miracle for Bama to lose again. So, but yeah, I right now, even that Georgia game, man, I still think if these 2 teams play, it's going to be a bar fight, man.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Do you think that this was the best as far as overall play that your team has played this year?
I don't know if I say that, but I think it was one of the most efficient, and I think we're learning to become more efficient. I mean, I don't know, to say it's the best, but it was one of our better ones.
Your team defensively, you didn't allow a third down conversion until the fourth quarter. What's that say about the defensive line?
Outstanding. I'm going to tell you what it says. You won first and second. When you win first and second down and have those third and longs, I think we had 1 third and short we stopped them on, but most of them were more than 3rd and 6 or more. It was outstanding. Our defensive line was outstanding in the game. Run and pass. And sacking the quarterback, affecting the quarterback, and playing the run.
As you enter the bye week, do you like where your team is at?
I really do right now. I really do. I mean, I think we're starting to mold. Now, we'll find out. We've got a heck of a run. I mean, you got Auburn, you have Ole Miss, you've got Prairie View, and then you've got LSU. 2 of those 4 on the road, and you got a big stretch coming. But I like the development and our buy-in, but our ability to go back and refocus and get back to those details and do a lot of those things. And those young guys are starting to understand the level of commitment it takes to do that. And we're playing so many young players, and I like where we're at. Now we got to practice and get ready down that stretch.
Shane, after the Tennessee game, you talked and said you thought Marcus's play calling and game planning was good. I'm curious, how would you evaluate the game plan and play calling tonight, and what does this offense have to do as a whole to kind of get back on track and start to build some momentum?
I mean, game plan wise, I thought it was good going into it. I mean, I thought we had a great plan, and it obviously didn't go quite like we thought. So, I mean, when you perform like we did in the first half, offensively, defensively, and special teams, we got to look at the plan at everything, and when you give up, when you have the defense out there for 40 plays in the first half, they were 4 of 6 on third down. Texas A&M was in the first half. We got to get our butts off the field ourselves on defense. And, offensively, when you're 0 for 6 and you only run 21 plays, you're obviously the plan and coaching and execution wasn't very good, and it's got to be better.
Shane, you touched on the offensive line, but as far as this, I mean, I think you guys had 15 yards through 3 quarters. As an offense, is it something that you're seeing? Is it starting up front tonight? Was it something that, were you guys not seeing routes develop, not getting a push up front? I mean, what do you kind of chalk it up to as far as, not being able to get things going tonight? And, I mean, is that a matter of going back and looking at the film? And I guess now 8 games into the season, how do you fix that from the last month? And I guess what does a bye week do for you guys on that front?
There's a lot there, Ben. I mean, when you perform like we did tonight, you got to evaluate everything. And I'll get on this plane and turn on the iPad and watch every play till we land in Columbia and figure out a way to be better. But it's easy to point to the offensive line. We didn't play great I don't think you didn't play great anywhere. Receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end, offensive line, coaching. I would say that we all had a hand in it, and there was some good in there as well. I mean, it was good to see some of the stuff in the second half, some of the things that we made, some of the plays, some of the runs and throws and catches that we had, and we've got to continue to do more of that. And we're 8 games in, so I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we are and where we are offensively, defensively, and special teams, and let's figure out how to maximize the potential of this team and be the very best we can be here the rest of the season.
All right, Shane, one other game here to really break down between SEC opponents. Mississippi State 45, Vanderbilt 6. And, man, the Bulldogs dominated this one so much so, Shane, they were throwing deep in the game. They had the backup quarterback in. He was launching it deep, scoring touchdowns. Mm-hmm. I was sweating bullets. The over-under, that was my favorite thing of the week, 51.5. 51 scored in this one, so I was sweating it to the very end. But my goodness, Shane, Vanderbilt, 9 yards rushing. That's kind of the story of the game. They just could get nothing on the ground. Whereas, I know it's Vanderbilt, but Will Rogers, Mississippi State, 524 yards of total offense, including 386 from Rogers, 4 touchdowns. He did have the 2 interceptions. But again, I mean, almost like Auburn, I just don't know week in and week out what the Mississippi State offense, what we're going to get. And they showed up this week, and the way their defense was playing, I mean, this was a blowout. I mean, this was over by the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but I tell you, I watched a lot of this game, Mike, and one thing that I took from it was this Vanderbilt defense has got some grit in them, man. I mean, there was plenty of times that they were in the backfield giving Rogers a handful. I mean, there was a ton of sacks. There was plenty of tackles for losses. There was interceptions. And it felt like every time Vanderbilt did something good on defense, mm-hmm. the offense did 2 bad things. Right. It just they could never capitalize. And then even the efficiency on the defense, it felt – if you look at some of the scores that came in, there was a lot of 3rd and goal opportunities that ended into a touchdown. There was opportunities that they had to get off the field, and the 45-6, that's definitely deceiving because Vanderbilt really gave Mississippi State a handful at times. And if I'm a State fan, there would be part of me during this game that's super frustrated because this should have been a 45-0 game at half. The talent difference is not there, but it felt like they kept shooting themselves in the foot. There's no reason Will Rogers should throw the ball 57 times against Vanderbilt. You know what I'm saying? He should have been out at half. So I don't know. I'm a little torn here. I understand Mississippi State does not like to run the ball, or that's just not part of their deal. Mm-hmm. But it felt like a team like Vanderbilt, if you look at games that they have, they've really struggled against the run. And I know the Pirate is a guru, but it felt like there would, I don't know, be a little bit more balanced in this game plan. And I'm not convinced that this was an exciting victory for Mississippi. It was a victory, don't get me wrong, but I'm telling you, I took away from this that Vanderbilt, they tried. They really did, especially that defense. Hell, they gave everything they could, but that offense is just so god-awful. I'm telling you, Vanderbilt offense may be the worst it's ever been. I mean, it's that bad.
So you basically if I'm reading what you're putting down here, if Vanderbilt had a competent offense, they may have made this a competitive ball game.
Without a doubt, Mike. Without a doubt. If they could have ran the ball, if they could have thrown the ball, it felt at times like Wright was just freaking launching it up to air and praying for a miracle. Like, I don't even think he knew where the receiver was going to be. It was a glorified punt at times. There was just nothing on that side of the ball. And when you do that, when you go 3 and out, then your defense is right back on the field, and you're going against Mississippi State that loves to just keep coming at you. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's that's why it just blew up there at the end, because that defense was on the field the entire time. So, yeah, I think if Vanderbilt had just if they could have Jay Cutler in his prime, you know what I'm saying? This may have been a ball game.
Yeah, Vanderbilt had only one drive on offense, Shane, that was over 5 plays. One drive, and it was a 7-play drive. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. Remember that. A very impressive stat for Vanderbilt's defense that I read on the show heading into the week, but they had 3 consecutive games of 2 or more interceptions. They got 2 more in this one, so that's 4 consecutive. But after the first one, Mike Wright, just like you said, turned around and launched it literally the next play, 1-play interception drive. But you just can't have that. I mean, Vanderbilt has basically they can't beat themselves. They have got to keep themselves in the game, play mistake-free football, hope the opponent makes the mistakes, and capitalize like the defense has, but the offense just is just turning it right back over.
Exactly. 3 and outs. They had 11 third downs. Only 1 was resulted in a first down. Jeez. 11, Mike. I mean, I would be pissed off. I would make my offense. Was this a home game? It was a Vanderbilt home game. Well,
yes, sir.
I'd make them use the other locker room. You know what I'm saying? I'd say, no, you keep your ass out there. The defense is going to take the shower first because we're the only ones that worked.
Coach, what did you think of Will's performance tonight? Obviously, a couple picks, but he had some good plays, 4 touchdown passes tonight.
I thought he good overall. Obviously, some sloppy play in the mix there. Some pretty sloppy stuff. What he did best was maintained his composure, was ready to play the next series. And then I think that rubbed off on our offensive unit and maybe even our team to a degree.
Coach, defensively, you guys are outstanding other than the one big play you gave up. How would you kind of assess the defensive performance tonight as kind of based on a field view?
I thought it was good. I thought it was good other than that one explosive, and Coach Arnett could probably help you more. I did think after a while we affected their quarterback, which I think definitely hampered their effort a little bit, and so I thought our defensive front did some good things there, and I thought they played pretty well,
Yeah, I can go again. Coach, going on the road in this league is always difficult to play, but you guys have actually been a pretty good road team this year. Why do you feel like that your guys maybe lock in, when they get a chance to go on the road?
I don't know if we do or not. I think that duplicating our routine, we try to make the routine at home the same as it is on the road, and try to duplicate all the periods depending what time the game starts and when we get to the hotel on Friday. So we try to just kind of pattern that with some consistency.
Hi, Clark. What's the level of disappointment considering kind of the regression from last week where you guys, played a competitive game?
Yeah, we're disappointed. And obviously we all work hard. The kids work hard. And we work hard to attain results. And when you fall short, it hurts. It hurt last week. It hurts this week, And I think anytime that you're building something, anytime that you're young into that, you're going to go through the throws, the highs and the lows. But, there's a better game for us out there today. We got to go actualize it, and we didn't. And so that's total ownership, like always. It starts with me. And extends to our coaching staff and obviously then down to the players. And there are going to be things across the board that we can improve upon. We're disappointed. but we don't have enough time to be victimized by it. We got to make the decision to get up off the mat and get back to work.
And then the only other game, Shane, we can do this one quickly because it wasn't much of one, but Arkansas goes technically on the road here to Little Rock and beats Arkansas Pine Bluff 45-3. This thing was over quickly. Arkansas jumped out 14-0 after 6 plays. The score was 45-0 at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought my favorite tweet of the day came from Cousin Shane, who looked at this score and said, "My goodness, Arkansas peanut butter is getting destroyed."
Oh man, I felt good for her. I mean, it's always nice when you're watching your team, just kick some ass. But man, this is like a high school team. I mean, Arkansas could do anything, especially when they punt. It was like a video game. I was just like, it was like they were high-fiving each other to see who could get a touchdown next, So not a ball game at all. But, hey, the main thing is you got your boys some rest. You got another victory. I think you get it's just momentum, man. Arkansas has kind of gotten used to winning, and they had a rough little stretch here. So I think this is a good one to get them back on track and back into SEC play.
Yeah, and a nice little stat booster here for KJ Jefferson, Shane. 194 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then I don't believe he even played in the second half. So, they just were running out the clock. But, yeah, this is exactly – Arkansas of 2 years ago, this probably would have been a challenge. You know what I mean? But this is a new era. We're just whipping the hell out of these teams that are overmatched. And that's what you needed to snap that losing streak, get on the right side of it, taste that victory. So that next week's practice and getting back into SEC play.
Absolutely. I think Coach Pittman could have returned a punt for a touchdown if he wanted to.
All right, Shane. So, hey, last thing we got before we get out the door here, we've got us some SEC opening lines. We only got 4 games. So how about this one?
Golly, 4 games. Everybody just taking the week off. Huh?
Yeah, just like last weekend. So the barn burner to start the week: Missouri at Vanderbilt. What do you got for that one?
Give me Missouri 13.
Missouri favored by 17 on the road at Missouri. Okay. Now how about this? Kentucky at Mississippi State.
Oh, give me Kentucky 4.
Mississippi State favored by 2.
Oh,
how about that? That's pretty wild.
No respect.
This is going to be I don't know if you can call it the game of the week, but it might be Ole Miss at Auburn.
Ole Miss at Auburn. Give me Ole Miss minus 9.
It's a pick 'em.
Oh, damn. Is it? Okay.
So we're getting some wild
Matt
lines
get hurt
here.
again?
And then last but not least, maybe the game of the week. This is typically a hell of a game here. Georgia versus Florida. Of course, in Jacksonville, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. What do you got for this one?
Oh, man. It should be a pick 'em. Wish it was a pick 'em, but I'm going to say Georgia minus 16.
Close. Georgia minus 13. So, hey, we don't have a lot of games, but this week we should have some really, really good ones. I think every single one of these could be a challenge. You know what?
Yeah, no, this is hey, last week we kind of felt blowouts coming. This week, not so fast, my friend. I think we got 4 good games here.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, hey, buddy, that's all I got. You got anything before we hop off the line?
No, it feels good to have money. I wish I had a victory, but lock of the week's doing well, so can't complain in that department. I will say, it was a fun week, Mike. It was a fun week. I wish we had some closer games. I think we're going to have that this week, and if your team's not playing, man, hopefully they're getting some rest. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's probably excited that Tennessee ain't doing shit this week, so Shane won't talk about them anymore. But I'm probably going to mention them once or twice, but not like McElroy, okay? I'm going to turn down the homerism a little bit. But anyway, Mike, no, I'm excited about, because the season is coming to an end soon, guys. So even though it's 4 games, love on them. Okay, I'm watching Arkansas Peanut Butter, and I was like, you know what? I don't care. It's a real game, and I'm going to watch it. It's not the XFL. It's not Arena League. It's the real deal. So I'm excited, Mike, about this coming up week, and who knows? Maybe we have a couple upsets, man. We need some upsets.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting cool outside. The leaves are changing color. This is the best time of year, so soak up each and every Saturday. Everybody was talking about how terrible this Saturday was going to be. We almost had some monumental upsets, some great football. I think a few top 10 teams did lose, in fact, over the weekend. So you just never know what you're going to get, and I'm hoping next week is just as much fun as this one.
Yeah, I wonder what juggernaut's going to put Cincinnati on upset alert this week. Get that shit out of here. Come on now. There's only one conference for a reason. We don't mess around in the SEC. So we're going to put 2 teams in the college football playoffs, and one of them are going to win it. That's what's going to happen. So you want to know the future? There it is.
All right, buddy. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate you for joining me as always. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with us. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. You want to make a good college football playoff, or like an epic college football playoffs, you put the top 4 SEC teams in there, and then let's have some fun. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I want Texas A&M going against Ole Miss, and the winner is going – no. Let's do Georgia Ole Miss, and then Alabama, Texas A&M. That's your college football playoffs, man. God, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can't fill up a Cincinnati game. You can't. There's no way. You could tell me that stadium is full of Bearcat fans. Well, they hold 15,000. I mean, there's high schools, and what's his name down there in Texas? Just got fired Arkansas. His stadium's bigger than Cincinnati Bearcat. Coach Morris. Yeah, so don't give me that shit. Idiots.